We are live. We're back. This is Combat Press midweek report. I'm glad we're back. It's been a while. I am Wayne Dumas. This is Matt Quiggins. How we doing, man?
Pretty good. Yourself? It's good to be back.
Not too bad. Yeah, as Eminem would say, it feels so good to be back. We have a lot to go down with this week. We have recap for UFC Fight Night, Teixeira versus St. Preux. Then we've got a ton of news. So let's kick it off with the news that was announced tonight. And UFC heavyweight champion Fabricio Verdum will rematch Cain Velasquez. Let's get your thoughts on that, Matt.
I mean, I don't know. It's, we had Cain come off that huge layoff. He definitely didn't look anything like the Cain that we know and, have seen just dominate people before. I almost would have liked to have seen him get one more fight in, kind of work his way back up the same way he did last time. But, hopefully we'll get a different Cain, a 100% Cain versus, what he showed that night versus Verdum.
I agree with you. I think he was a different guy. I don't know what it is. Like some of these matches that Cain's in, it just feels like, you know what? I don't feel like fighting tonight. And then he just gets demolished. And he did the third fight with Junior and just tore him apart. It was like
fight, yeah.
It was like where was that guy the first time? Granted, with the first fight with Junior, he had an injury, 63-second knockout. This time around, I agree with you. He should have had another fight. But who would he have fought?
It's true. I mean, everybody else is really booked right now, especially, with now Stipe and, Ben Rothwell getting booked as well.
That is the other big news is Stipe Miocic will get Ben Rothwell in possibly Ireland. Which, man, talk about a heavyweight in a crowd like that. Oh, my goodness. Just watch out for beer bottles galore. And like I said, who does he get? Right now we have Andre Arlovski taking on Frank Mir. No, he can't take any of those two. Alistair Overeem said he's going to sit out forever as long as it takes to get Junior Dos Santos. So that's looking like December, January. So unfortunately, the UFC, their hands were tied, and that was the only fight that they had at the moment.
It was just it tells you the status of the heavyweight division, that there really was, timing was just terrible for this.
Right, and it's the heavyweight division is so wide open at this point, I guess. And then with the news that Fedor's in talks, it's like, where would he fit in the mix?
I don't think he fit in the heavyweight mix at all, to be honest.
And now I've heard of him dropping to 205. Do you think that would be a move that would be wise for Fedor, considering his age and mileage?
Probably, and I mean, we saw he didn't look bad against Dan Henderson. I mean, he didn't. He got, he tagged in, and then Dan tagged him back. And I'm pretty sure that fight was contested at, I think it was, light heavyweight at that point. But really, I think there were like 210, 215, which technically would be heavyweight. But I don't see him going to the UFC at all. And I think at this point, it's almost too far gone.
I agree. I think he should just stay out. He had a great, illustrious career. He beat the guys that were in front of him. Granted, they were some circus shows, but his legacy's in cement, and there's no reason to have to do anything in the UFC to prove his worthiness. Some other news this week, we had Amir Khan. Amir Khan's making his way into the mixed martial arts world with buying a portion of Super Fight League. And it looks like they're going to be moving their operations to America, which is an interesting business aspect of it. I think we're going to be seeing more of this. Conor McGregor's talked about it too, how he's gonna take the money and start promoting himself, a la Mayweather. So I think we're gonna see a lot more crossover. The more we go down the road,
Mm-hmm.
and
More than
it's good.
likely.
It's good for Super Fight League, man. They've been trying to get a foothold in America for a while, and Amir Khan's known in America as being a fighter. So you know that he's not gonna waste money putting it into a league he doesn't believe in.
It's true. And I mean, it would give them a little bit more exposure, make their cards a little bit easier to watch. Other than having to stream them, maybe there's a different way, a different route to go.
Right. Also announced this week, we actually have the date set for Aldo McGregor, December 12th in Vegas. Sorry, Dallas, you don't get it. McGregor opens as a 2-1 favorite, which in my opinion is absurd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll let you, talk about that on that one, but really, it's a disgrace to the champion himself. At this point, but I think with all the hype behind McGregor, that's what it is. But like you had mentioned before, Jose Aldo hasn't lost a fight in almost 10 years. I mean, his last loss was 10 years ago, so it'll be 10 years since he's lost when he fights McGregor.
That's a long time, and man, we thought just to play devil's advocate, man, we thought Barao couldn't be beat. And look at TJ, man. He just dismantled him twice. Do we see the black belt come out in Jose Aldo, considering what Chad Mendes did to Conor?
I see the leg kicks being a huge part for Aldo, because it's something that really nobody that's fought McGregor has utilized properly or efficiently. And I mean, you see what Aldo did to just about everybody when he leg kicks them. I think Uriah Faber, couldn't walk for about a week after that fight. So, I think if he utilizes that, it kind of takes away, Conor's style, and will really make him, work for everything he has to do.
Now, Conor was talking about how before the Chad Mendes fight, he wasn't, quote unquote, drilling or sparring wrestling all that much because of some figurative injury. Do you think that if Aldo starts throwing those kicks that we see a Conor McGregor takedown?
I don't know, because like you said, besides, when Mendes was on top of him, when he did keep him down, he did some damage. Conor did pretty well off of his back, but he didn't do anything threatening, submission wise. So I think going to the ground with Aldo might not be the smartest thing, but when's the last time you saw Aldo win with a submission?
Right. That was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah. We'll just call this submission by soccer kicks back in 2005. So yeah, 10 years ago.
10 years ago, exactly. Conor McGregor, he's money. He's gonna sell pay-per-views. This fight is arguably the biggest fight in the UFC, period. 2-1 favorite though. Come on, give the champ a little bit more respect. I would. The money's gonna come in on Aldo because of his track record, so that gap's gonna close pretty fast, in my opinion. But it's gonna be a fun fight. I know that for sure.
Well, let's moving on at this point.
Right. Considering Nuevo's style of weight cutting, so and no IVs now, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
In other news, we had Magny taking the spot for Eric Silva. He had to pull out, actually taking on Eric Silva. Had to replace Rick Story, which sucks because I really wanted to see that fight. That fight was looked like it was going to be an epic fight, but Neil Magny's pulling the cowboy move and saying, "Hey, I'll fight whenever, even though I got no defense on the ground against Damian Maia.
I mean, you could say that, but at the same time, I mean, how many guys really have good defense on the ground against Damian Maia?
Nobody.
So,
In other news, Tim Kennedy,
brave man.
he's letting his words talk for him right now, and he has his uniform pulled from UFC, but UFC refuses to cut him, which is interesting.
Well, what was interesting was him making the comment about how he made more money in Strikeforce than the entire card did off of Reebok sponsorships. And within hours, his jersey, his fighter kit gets pulled from the website.
Right.
And like you said, Stitch made a comment that wasn't even close to singling out this sponsorship, just saying, I am losing money from this, but it is what it is. This is what's going on. And then Tim Kennedy openly blasts Reebok and still has a job. So, it's a double-edged sword there,
Yeah, this not many people made very much money this last weekend, considering the structure that is paid out.
Mm-hmm.
And Tim Kennedy was simply stating, "Hey, I fought some cans and I made way more money than anybody made last weekend," which sucks because last weekend we had Glover Teixeira versus OSP, which was a good fight. What shows that OSP still needs to hit the wrestling mat. We had Michael Johnson take on Benali Dariush, two top 10 fighters in the lightweight division. These are guys that, in my opinion, should be getting paid a little bit more than they are. But, it's UFC is a private company. You're a contracted worker. There's not much you can really do except for if you want to fight for the big dogs, you gotta bite the apple, I guess.
Well, that'll make your perfect segue into Josh Thomson deciding not to re-sign with the UFC.
Or as Dana White would put it, we released him. Exactly. Josh Thomson signs with Bellator in a quote-unquote, as he would call it, a fighter-friendly contract. He was also quoted as saying the Reebok deal was an issue. Do you foresee more fighters doing this, making the jump?
I think so. I mean, I think the only thing that's going to stop them is, with the UFC doing as many events as they do, part of that is is because of how many fighters they have on the roster. And when I think you start to see these other organizations like Bellator and World Series get, bigger rosters, they are going to have to put on more cards. That being said, yes, I still think a lot of guys are going to go to other organizations. And maybe just wait it out, fight a couple fights in Bellator, fight a couple fights in World Series, Titan. Look at Tim Elliott. Guy gets cut from the UFC, Titan gives him a title fight, and he, dominated, another former UFC flyweight. So, taking advantage of the situation, and maybe the Reebok deal changes in the next 2 years. Then these guys, have a title, they have, a winning record, and they get back into the UFC. So I guess it just depends on how they go out.
Right. It's interesting because Bellator has been signing a lot of older UFC talent, which is weird because guys like Josh Koscheck and Josh Thomson and these other big names that have been in the UFC, the Reebok structure is based on how many Zuffa fights you have. Josh Koscheck's got like 30 freaking Zuffa fights, man. Like he would be making top tier money, but it sounds like he'll be making more money in Bellator, which is interesting.
And I mean, Coker's come out before to say it. They brought in these guys because they're names. They're going to be using them to put eyes on the other guys. And look at Shamrock and Kimbo. It did that. More people watched Patricio Pitbull's title fight than had ever watched any of his fights before because they were waiting to watch, Kimbo and Ken. it's not an it's not an exciting fight. It's not a competitive fight. It was a fight to put eyes on the card. And I think signing guys like Koscheck, people are talking about it. People are still talking about it. He hasn't even had a fight yet.
Right, right, and to sign a name of Josh Koscheck, who fought on the first season tough, one of the original guys who brought the sport to mainstream. Um, this is Scott Coker's Bellator. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he did it in Strikeforce. He was like, okay, I'm gonna make the bold move and do a co promotion with M1, bring Fedor in, bring him to America. He was the one that did it. And with the backing of Viacom, man,
Mm-hmm.
Scott Coker is he's a genius at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting to see what he's doing, especially with Bellator Dynamite coming up, having Glory kickboxing at the same time, in the same night as cage fighting. He's really taking something that was once called the UFC rejects. It really that's what it was, and he's turning it into a highly competitive promotion. I mean, I still wouldn't say it's UFC level, but they're getting there, and they're creeping up fast.
And they have a lot of homegrown talent, which not a lot. WSO have a few, but Bellator's got, man, the pit bulls, Joe Warren, Will Brooks, and you
Daniel
could go on.
Strauss,
Yeah, you could go on and on.
Caveman.
McGarry, Keen Mo, which is a buddy of Scott Coker from Strikeforce days.
Yeah.
Um, they know how to groom their talent, and I think WSOF has the same model. I think they see what Bellator's doing. They're like, we need to keep these guys. And with WSOF, they just signed bantamweight prospect out of Jackson's for another 4-fight deal. You're going to see these guys not moving from the leagues that they're in, and which is going to make the competition more open for the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on down the line, we finally, we get to see Anderson Silva in front of the Nevada State Athletic Commission. For those of you that don't remember, Anderson Silva fought Nick Diaz, which, in my opinion, Nick Diaz gave the best in-ring performance without throwing a punch I've ever seen. Dude laid down in the middle of the cage, for Christ's sake.
In front of Anderson Silva.
In front of Anderson Silva, of all people. Anderson Silva will be in front of the State Athletic Commission come tomorrow. And his lawyer's saying that, hey, we were trying to make some babies. They were bad pills. What's your take on that one?
I almost forgot that his hearing was even still going. Because, with everything that happened after that fight, just, and then as soon as it tested positive, every other fighter was saying, oh, maybe he was, on performance-enhancing drugs when I fought him, or when I fought him. And I think at this point, it's just reaching for air.
Right. The way I see it going down, he's already served almost 6 months of his suspension. They're probably going to add an extra 3 months. In my opinion, dude doesn't need to fight again. Do your GSP impression, walk away. Train some dudes, make some money that way. Like I said for Fedor, your face is already on the Mount Rushmore, bro. Come on, just walk away.
Yeah, I agree.
Real quick, CM Punk. It's been almost a year since they announced him. Hasn't had a fight yet. Sure dude does know how to tick somebody off. Cathar Pennard, for some reason, saw a video of him trying to box and said, oh, man, I knock him out. He makes me look like Ali. And then CM Punk got into his normal ways of telling people to shut up and giving them a few facts. And Bernard tried to keep running with it. Bernard's so boring. at this point. Like, I don't even care. He's just trying to make himself relevant, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, they need to find somebody for CM to fight. I mean, it would be throwing, taking a guy with 0 pro fights against a guy with 21 pro fights.
Yeah, and the UFC's already said they're not going to do that. They're going to find somebody outside that's a 2-1 or a 1-1. But I can't trust Dana White as far as I can throw the dude. So you could take whatever he says with a grain of salt.
Well, yeah, we also at one point said that women's MMA would never be in the UFC. So,
and then now he can't shut up about Ronda Rousey.
And the fact that Ronda's, I'm pretty sure, the numbers for 190 did better than 189. So it shows, how big Ronda really is.
Speaking of that, I saw a report that came out that said that she's in the top 10 of most money-making women in sports with a figure of 6.5 million, which seems kind of high when you're a mixed martial artist, but considering the exposure she's had the last several weeks, that's kind of low.
Well, and at the same time, do we know that that's just from her MMA?
And that's the thing is some reports are coming out saying that her endorsements altogether are 3 million, with Monster and I don't even know what Carl's Jr. is giving her, which is strange that she's going to be in Carl's Jr. commercials, considering.
Especially with her. Hopefully they change the direction of those commercials for when they put her in there.
I think she's gonna make them, considering she controls pretty much her own career. All right, let's go into some breaking down. We had a fight this weekend. We had UFC Fight Night 73, or as we called it, Nashville. I didn't get to see the center portion of the undercard with Uriah Hall taking on newcomer Bambusi. But I heard that was a pretty spectacular knockout. And, man, Uriah Hall is one of the strangest enigmas in the UFC. Dude doesn't know if he wants to fight or not.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'll knock this guy out. I'll clinch with this guy and lose. Oh, I'll knock this guy out. I'll let him clinch me against the fence and I'll lose. It's like, I don't know what to do with him half the time. But he looks like he could be one of the scariest dudes in the middleweight division.
Yeah, and I mean, the only problem I have with that is we've been saying that since he came off The Ultimate Fighter. And then, Kelvin starts him in the finale, and it's like you said, it's been a roller coaster of up and down since. I'd like to see him beat some top tier guys, not and really show what he has to offer before we can, I would say yes, he's a guy to watch, but one of the most dangerous guys. I can't agree with that at this point.
Right. This card was when I first saw this, I was like, man, this is gonna be a good card. And then the fights happened, and I was like, man, it was very predictable. The biggest surprise was Amanda Nunes staking her claim at the #1 contendership for the women's bantamweight field, which is interesting because, man, she schooled Sarah McMahon, and Sarah McMahon has made more excuses than anybody I've ever heard, except for Kat Zingano getting armbarred in 14 seconds.
11.
Whatever it was ridiculous. Amanda Nunes gets the knockout victory, or actually the submission victory, actually. I missed that fight, actually. She gets a submission victory over Sarah McMahon. They flip spots in the rankings. Sarah drops down to 6 or 7, and Amanda Nunes drops up into the top 5. Question is, does Amanda deserve to fight Ronda yet, or does she need to go through Kat or somebody similar?
I think one more fight. I mean, really, her winning Saturday was her capitalizing on Sarah doing something stupid, in my opinion, because Amanda threw a couple spinning kicks that didn't really work, and then Sarah threw a spinning kick, and when she turned around, Nunez just hit her with one of the best counters I've seen. So it's just a matter of right place, right time. So I'd love to see her, do it again and see what she can do. So yeah, so
right.
maybe even Kat, if because I don't think Kat's booked for a fight right now.
I haven't heard anything yet.
And I mean, obviously Amanda would be out for a few more months, but it might not be a bad idea.
And the fight before that, we had Ray Borg literally sit on the chest of Janae Herrera.
Jean Carlos Herrera. So
whatever he wants to go by, I've heard it said 3 different ways.
mm-hmm.
Ray Borg, he's he's from my hometown. I don't know what the problem was, why he didn't just cut the 0.75 and not look bad without cutting it. Because he just totally dominated. He got the takedown. He smothered him. Granted, Herrera got the cut, but I don't think that swayed anything.
I think obviously Herrera being from my hometown, and the fact that I've seen him fight, and I've met the guy, talked to him a lot. He really did a good job against a tough opponent. They say a lot of guys, in a loss, but he showed that he was never willing to give up. He was always trying for submissions, always moving, always going. And I mean, I think that shows something for, a guy making his UFC debut against a top 15, flyweight.
Right. He showed some of the best bottom defense I've ever seen in a fight. Dude has some of the best hip control from the bottom since Travis Lutter, for goodness sake. Because Travis Lutter spent a lot of time on his back. He showed a lot of heart. He kept fighting. It was just unfortunate that Ray Borg fights like a 145er when he's on top of you. Dude is super hard to get off. He has great hip control. He knows how to control the hands when he's in close on top of you. Something about the Albuquerqueans with those elbows from every angle. So I wasn't surprised by that. Then we moved on to, as JR would say, a slobber knocker of a fight when Jared Russell took on Tim Johnson, which Tim Johnson's mustache I could not get over, dude. I'm like, really?
He looked like a Dan Severn. It's kind of funny.
Right. Jared walks away with the win. Unanimous decision. It was a back and forth fight. Tim should have won that fight if he kept punching.
Yeah, I mean, especially with what he did in the last 15 seconds. I mean, he was pretty close to taking that fight. So,
in some people's opinion, the next fight was a quick stoppage, which, in my opinion, it wasn't. Derek Brunson took on Smiling Sam Alvey. Off topic a little bit. If I ever meet Sam, I want to try to piss that dude off so bad because the dude's always smiling. Like, he takes his nickname to the next level. He's just having fun out there, which I love. Granted, he ate about 50 shots against the cage. And Derek Brunson's not a small middleweight either.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to take the other side, and I think it was stopped a little early. I've seen fights go on much, much longer, and just because it's the one that sticks in my head the most, Frank Mir and Shane Carwin. way back when. I mean, Frank was face down on the ground getting hit in the head, and the fight went on. So I think it could have gone on a little more. Do I think it would have changed the outcome? Maybe. But he looked pretty clear and concise. He was a little wobbled, but I think he could have, Alvey could have fought out of that because he's looked pretty good so far this go around in the UFC.
I was talking to a guy I talk to on Twitter all the time. He's got a podcast, and on his podcast, he said that his breakdown of the fight was Sam Alvey's way of winning is getting punched in the face 50 times, and then at 51 he throws that counter and knocks you out. Which is an interesting assumption, and I don't know. Derek Brunson's just a beast. He deserves, in my opinion, he's underrated.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to have some big things coming his way. And then the next fight after that was the worst decision making I've seen in a long time, in my opinion. Benali Dariush walks away with the split decision victory over Michael Johnson. This is how I thought Michael Johnson won when I went into autopilot in third round, considering that I saw 2-0 going into the third round. And then coming out of it, Benali Dariush has got his hand raised. My question for you is when does the commission become accountable?
I mean, it's in more recent years we've seen, there was the Ross Pearson, Diego Sanchez, this one, there's got to be a point where, I don't think we're ever going to solve the MMA judging issue. When the president of the UFC says, don't leave it in the hands of the judges, and really most fighters will say the same thing. It's because they want to, make sure that it's going to go your way. So when you have somebody like Johnson who was up 2-1, and just about everybody's book that I saw, it came as a surprise to everyone. So they can hold the commission accountable as long as they want, but it's probably going to be much, much longer than we ever want to admit before something gets done to fix it.
I think there needs to be a new system. One FC does it very well, where they judge the fight as a whole, not by rounds. Which, in my opinion, an MMA fight needs to be judged that way. Take everything into account, because the 10-point must system, it judges it off of how you did for that round, and then the judges move on. They don't even care about the last round when they go into a new round. And one has significantly less controversy when it comes to decisions. Granted, there's been quite a few nasty eye pokes in one, but the decision making is way better, in my opinion. And I think that we need to start evolving our industry to be its own. I think we need to get away from boxing a little bit more.
Kind of hard when one of the UFC's top grossing champions has a feud, and every media outlet is talking about, who would win between Ronda Rousey and Floyd Mayweather. It's hard to get away from boxing when we keep trying to make these comparisons and use these rules that don't make any sense.
Right. It matters on the judge too. It matters. Some judges feel that cage control isn't as important as output. Some feel that, hey, the dude got one takedown in that round, so give him the round. And we've seen it. Robbie Lawler, the last 30 seconds against Johnny Hendricks, he put his heart on the line, threw everything he got in that last 30 seconds, and he walked away with 4 rounds and won the title.
Mm-hmm.
So it just shows you it doesn't always matter what happens in the beginning of a round.
No.
Main event of the right. It's usually who wants it more, who's got more heart. Like I said, to the last 30 seconds, put the pressure on, and 9 times out of 10, you win the round.
Mm-hmm.
Main event of the night, I thought was going to go a little bit different, and Glover Teixeira taking on Ovin St. Preux out of Tennessee. Ovin St. Preux has proved again that he has no takedown defense.
Yeah, I mean Glover tossed him around like a rag doll.
I was watching UFC tonight, and they were doing a breakdown on Glover. Let him kick him a couple times, and then he started to figure him out. He had a telltale sign of he'll extend his back leg all the way and then throw the kick. And Glover caught on to it real quick, and he was able to get the submission victory, which is good for Glover. But the problem is, do you give him a title fight at this point?
At this point, I've given up on deciding who gets a title fight at light heavyweight. Because, right now you have a champion whose last fight prior to winning the belt was a loss to John Jones. You have Alexander Gustafsson, who should have had a rematch with Jones before any of this happened. Loses to Anthony Johnson convincingly. Gets knocked, TKO'd in the first round. And then his next fight is a title fight against DC, who just beat Anthony Johnson. So I feel like they're just grabbing for straws at this point. And I mean, I'd love to see Alex as a champion. I think he can make for a pretty interesting one. But it's just going to depend on how what goes on from there. But as far as Glover getting another shot, give him at least one or two more fights. I really want to see it.
This is a problem that we should have had 2 years down the road, in my opinion, or at least one. Because John Jones, he's dismantled everybody. It doesn't matter who it was or who it's been. Granted, Alex gave him the best fight, and he should have got the immediate rematch. Because some people gave Alex the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It was a close fight. It was a great fight. But John Jones has walked into and through everybody, and it was just inevitable time that he was going to go to heavyweight anyways. So we're seeing that the light heavyweight division needs John Jones, but it's difficult to thrive with him in it because he's just so dominant.
Yeah, and that's obviously the problem. We don't know if Jones is ever going to come back.
I think he will. From what I've heard around the grapevine is even John Dodson said it. He's in the gym. No, he's not worried about himself at this point. It's all about the team now. He's realizing at this point in his career that it's all about the people around you, not about you. Especially with the way that the teams are structured now. You got American Top Team running at top tier again. You've got Rufus Sport, top-notch fighters. You've got AKA with the top-notch fighters. And what's the common factor of all that is they're all for the team. And John Jones was he felt that he was the alpha male. Yeah, there was some pictures floating here or there of John helping out the heavyweights at Jackson's, but it was always about John Jones. So why did Rashad leave? It was about John Jones. So I think that he will be back. He will be in a different mindset, and we will see the dominant Jones that we're used to, but with a more level-headedness about him.
Which is scary.
Right? Yeah. John Jones. I've talked to friends. I've talked to family about it. John Jones, in the way that he's okay. We can assume there was something in his system in that wreck. Considering he's gotten popped for cocaine. We were just talking about this. Our guest, which we're trying to get on right now, John Jones is a party wild man, and winning the way he is. Imagine a John Jones dedicated 24/7, 365 to the sport. Walks into the gym. He's helping everybody out. Everybody's helping him out. God, that's scary. I don't care who you are in the light heavyweight or heavyweight division. You better be scared of a clean John Jones. Coming up, we got a week break, which is interesting. UFC will not be back until August 23rd, which I'm an old wrestling fan, and that Sunday, it's a Sunday fight, and you're going head to head with WWE SummerSlam, which is not the smartest idea, considering that the card isn't the greatest. We've got a few fights. We got Oliver Aben Mercier coming back. Josh Berkman versus Patrick Cote. Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira, which is going to be a barn burner of a fight because those two dudes never stop. But to go against WWE SummerSlam with Brock versus Undertaker is an interesting choice of a date. We had some regional action this week, RFA 28. We had John Poppy take on Andrew Sanchez. Andrew Sanchez got back into the win column and hopefully makes his return right. He was being looked at by some of the bigger guys until he lost. I like to watch the regional circuit. RFAs around here a lot. Speaking of regional, man, I wish we could really get him on. He fought at Island Fight. Island Fight is coming up quick. There was a Jackson guy that fought at Island Fight this last couple weeks at John Hamm. He fought on that card.
Well, see if you can invite him because his Hangouts is working now.
I've sent it to him.
Let's see.
This would be.
Oh.
We're trying to get Alex the Spartan Nicholson on. Matt, you sent me his video from his last fight. Dude was getting tossed around, getting rocked. I'm surprised the fight continued. He lives by his name and dies by his nickname, in my opinion. Dude just took punishment. If I'm correct, he had received a broken jaw.
Yeah, it was one of the first few punches that was thrown. He was also taking on a guy that had a 40-pound weight advantage.
Yeah, that dude was enormous. Like, I don't even know how Alex was still going to fight that guy. He's signed by the UFC. He's a big dude. He seems like an interesting character. Let's see if we can get him on. We'll talk. What does Nevada do with Nick? Diaz.
What does Nevada do with either of the Diaz brothers after the World Series of Fighting stuff?
Right. Actually, that's a great segue. Nevada came out, said, Steve Mazzagatti, he's got his issues. We've talked to him about it, but we're going to keep him. Which, in my opinion, is absurd. Like,
Yeah.
if you can't take control of the ring as a ref, you should not be a ref. And Paul Harris just dominated control that whole fight. You tell a guy not to poke another guy in the eye 5 times and you don't deduct a point, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Which, in my opinion, WSOF did the right thing, pulled the title from Paul Harris. But that leaves your welterweight division in a stalemate. Considering John Fitch has lost to Paul Harris. He was injured by Paul Harris. Jake Shields said that he's out probably 6 months with a shoulder injury after that Kimura.
Well, yeah, and the fact that they suspended him, too, for that punch.
Which was not a WSOF move. That was a Nevada move, which,
yeah,
by all means, they have to do that. And then if the Diaz brothers were in the building, all hell would have broke loose.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been real interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Next pay-per-view we got up is 191. Demetrius Johnson versus John Dodson. Andrei Arlovsky versus Frank Mir, co-main event. Give us your breakdown of DJ versus JD.
I think, honestly, the best thing for the division would be a Dodson win. I mean, Dodson had a pretty good fight with him last time. You know, he did knock down DJ a few times. And he's really improved since, but so has DJ. But I feel like as far as bringing people to the table and selling pay-per-views, Dodson's going to do a much better job. He's just got that personality that makes you either want to love him or hate him. But you know it's going to be an interesting fight.
Right, yeah. I have seen video of Dodson in training, but the dude has a switch he turns on when he gets in there. But TJ is just on another level. He's literally the John Jones of the lighterweight divisions. At this point, I would love to see the TJ fight DJ. That would be an amazing fight. Other than Dominic Cruz, their footwork is some of the best and mesmerizing footwork I've ever seen. Dodson's got the power. Does he have the power to get it down on the ground? I think that's where Dodson wins the fight. As if he can impose his will, get the fight to the ground, and stay on top of him. But no one's been able to do that. Bogdanovich, teammate of John Dodson, was supposed to be the Sambo guy, the wrestling guy, get him down. He didn't land but a half a takedown in that fight.
He didn't deserve a title shot, but that's...
But what do you do with a division like this? Like it goes back to the light heavyweight division when the guy just dominates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got to give the champion's got to fight, so you got to give him somebody like a 6, 7. That's what we saw with Ronda. She's cleared out the division, and then she fought Becce, and Becce at that point was ranked 6.
Yeah.
Trying to get our guest on.
Oh. His phone's messing up right now. And I'm assuming there's not a way that we could call without the video.
We can take a quick break and see if we could get him on, because I want to talk to this guy. This guy seems really cool. I think it would be a great conversation. So we're going to take a quick break and see if we could get Alex on. Bear with us.